Welcome to Tales from Flat Space, a podcast of science fiction and fantasy by yours truly, Gina A. Pond. Just know that the stories in this podcast may contain content that could be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. So this is Colony, Prologue, Chapter 1, Jenny. I pushed the door to the dojo open. To my surprise, the spacious room was mostly empty, except for the instructors sitting in a line against the wall. Oh, shit, this is it, I thought. I walked to the middle of the room, turned towards the instructors, and bowed. "Kneel, facing the wall behind you," one of the instructors said. I bowed again and did as I was told. I started breathing as I would for meditation and tried to clear my mind. My nerves felt as if they were on fire. I didn't know exactly what this test would entail, and no one in the Dan ranks would tell me. Time seemed to stretch and slow as I listened for any clue as to what was happening behind me. Then I heard it, a light footfall behind me, barely audible. They were holding something, moving directly towards me. I breathed in and out quietly, listening to the steps get closer. When they stopped right behind me, I didn't hesitate. I rolled forward, coming up into a fighting stance, to see Georg-sensei crack the kunai on the mat. I didn't think as I lunged forward, knocked the practice sword from his hand, and had him on the floor with my palm at his chin. "Stop!" yelled the Admiral. I stood up and helped Georg-sensei to his feet. He bowed to me with a look of surprise and respect on his face. "Congratulations, Jenny-san. You have learned much in this last year," Georg-sensei said. He turned and walked back to his seat among the instructors. I stared at him and tried not to open my mouth in awe. Georg-sensei never gave me a compliment in the whole year he'd been my instructor. I wanted to dance with glee. Instead, I turned toward the instructors. It was the Admiral who stepped forward, with the executive officer behind him holding a Dan jacket and another wrapped object. "Please kneel, warrior," he said. I did so, and he motioned for the executive officer who came forward to put the jacket on me. "I, Musashi-sensei, and all of the instructors welcome you to the ranks of the Dan, Jenny. We present you with the jacket of your office, and will now hear the choice of vows you would make. Do you know which vows you will take?" "I do," I replied. "Recite them," he ordered. I recited from memory. "I undertake the precept to refrain from destroying living creatures unless it is in the name of protecting my charges, the AIs, and those who cannot protect themselves. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual activity. I undertake the precept to refrain from incorrect speech. I undertake the precept to refrain from intoxicating drinks and drugs which lead to carelessness. I undertake the precept to refrain from eating at the forbidden time. I undertake the precept to refrain from dancing, singing music, and engaging in other entertainments when on duty. I undertake the precept to refrain from wearing garlands, using perfumes, and beautifying the body with cosmetics. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying on a high or luxurious sleeping place. I undertake the precept to refrain from accepting money or other forms of payment." The Admiral nodded to the executive officer. They kneeled before me and handed me the wrapped package on top of their open palms. I bowed to them, took the package, and unwrapped it, carefully. The katana was in a plain black sheath with Musashi's seal on it, but I knew that this was no ordinary katana. Everyone who reached Dan status received a blade like this, and my heart leapt to have one of my own. I looked up at the Admiral, who smiled. "I accept your vows, Jenny of the First Dan." He bowed to me, then returned with the executive officer to the line of instructors, who all stood. "Let us take refuge," he said, and I and the others recited. "May the benefit of our work today and all our work be dedicated unto the complete liberation of the supreme enlightenment of all beings, everywhere pervading space and time. May the benefits of practice, ours and others, come to fruition, ultimately and immediately, and we remain in the state of presence. So mote it be." Formalities complete, the instructors came to congratulate me. Some just bowed, some shook my hand, and others patted me on the shoulder. Then they began to leave the room. Still in awe of what just happened, with my new weapon cradled in my hands, I didn't realize that the others had all left the room. Only the Admiral remained. I bowed to him again and said, "Thank you, Admiral. I'm honored that you came to my test. He shook his head. You have no need to thank me. It was Mia and your instructors who knew you were ready for this test. Isn't that right, Mia? Yes, Admiral, Musashi-sensei said. Jenny, you have shown incredible progress in your martial arts training and in your spiritual training. There is nothing more you could learn in training that you can't learn on your own. The Admiral smiled at this, and I blushed. Thank you, I said. Well, it does show that you did deserve your martial arts medal when you graduated from Unity Fleet Academy. You have a talent, Jenny, and one that we haven't seen much of in many years. What will you do now? As you know, now that you are of Dan rank, you're free to come and go as you please unless you are assigned to a specific mission. He had a twinkle in his eye that let me know he knew what I wanted to do, but he wanted me to say it out loud. I would like to go to New York Colony, sir. I need to know what happened to my family. I see. He clasped his hands behind his back and started walking around the room. I stayed where I was, since you only walked with the Admiral if you were invited. What do you think, Mia? Yes, Admiral, the arrangements could be made. I think we should arrange for someone to go with her, though. No! I blurted out. The Admiral stopped walking. No? You object to the wisdom of your elders? It's just that I need to go alone, sir. Why? For revenge against your father? He asked. No, I just took a vow against that, I replied. So you did. Why do you wish to go to a place of pain for you? Are you punishing yourself for things you did in the past? I paused. Was I? I don't think so, sir. But there are others in my family who were innocent of what my father did. I need to know what happened to them. The Admiral stopped pacing, standing in front of me. His dark eyes stared into mine for several minutes, as he seemed to be weighing something. I stared back at him and let myself relax. Then he said, Mia? The reasoning is acceptable. I have made the arrangements. Thank you, Mia. I wish you a safe journey and a safe return, Jenny-san. Come see me when you return. I would like to hear about what happens to you. Thank you, Admiral, I said, as the Admiral walked out of the room. Jenny-san, we will be rendezvousing with the Ares in a month. They will take you to New York Station. You will have the usual stipend all warriors receive in Unity space. Additional information on the colony's status will be sent to your tablet. You must bring a uniform with you, but I do not recommend wearing it while traveling through Unity. As you know, Survey is not well liked right now. I will inform you when Ares arrives. Until then, your time is your own. Ray and the others are waiting for you. They have made sweets in anticipation of the outcome. I smiled. Thank you, Musashi-sensei. I'm honored that you recognize my work. You're welcome, Musashi-sensei said. I belted my sword on and left the dojo. There was a squeal from across the common room when I walked in. Amy came barreling out of nowhere and hugged me hard. I knew you'd pass! She gave me a kiss on the cheek and led me into the room. Someone shoved a cupcake in one hand and some sort of drink in the other. Folks began clapping and whistling. My cheeks grew hot, which made some folks laugh. All right, give the poor woman some air. She just had to fight to the death or whatever to earn that sword, said Ray from behind me as she wrapped me in a big bear hug. I nearly dropped my food, but thankfully my reflexes, still a bit on edge from the test, helped me keep hold of them until she put me down. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate this, and everything you've done for me all this year, I said to the crowd. I teared up, looking at all of my new friends. My voice cracked. You've all helped me in so many ways. A lot of folks said, "Aww," while Amy steered me to a chair with a table next to it, so I could put down the food and wipe my eyes. Well, we all know you deserve this, especially those of us on the receiving end of your fighting and training. She laughed, and so did a few others. Oh, and hey, what did you do to Georg-san? I saw him about 10 minutes ago, and he looked like he got stunned by a nanopicket. Amy, you know she can't talk about the test, said Ray. I know, but let's just say that I surprised him. He actually complimented me in the middle of it, I said. What? Amy said. And everyone looked at me in awe for a moment. I wasn't the only one who noticed Georg-sensei was sparing with compliments. I blushed harder and nodded. Someone in the back of the room laughed and said, "So, who's taking bets she becomes the Admiral's apprentice? He's been sitting in on her practices all year. He even brought Eli in to see her." "I'll take that bet," someone else said. "Oh, please, I just got to first in. Who knows what will happen in the future," I interjected. See, she's already talking like him," said Amy. Everyone laughed. Then people started to come over and congratulate me. I managed to eat some of my cupcake and the drink, which thankfully turned out to be a strong electrolyte drink. Eventually, everyone went back to their duties, with only Ray and Amy remaining. Amy came forward and gave me another hug. "You've been through so much in these last years. I'm so glad you stayed with us after New Harmony. You seem so much more at peace now." I nodded. "I am. The teachings here, you all... I'm not sure I could have really recovered elsewhere." Amy touched her shoulder. "I'm glad you did. I have to go, but I'll see you in the bath later?" I nodded, and she left. Ray was still sitting there. I looked at her and knew what was coming. I wasn't really looking forward to this. "You took the full 10, didn't you?" she said. I nodded, and her face fell. I sighed and said, "Ray, I can't be what you want me to be." Ray stared at the floor between her feet. "But I love you," she said quietly. "I know, but after New Harmony..." I took a breath. "Ray, I can't be what you want me to be, especially off-ship. You love the idea of me, Ray, and I can't live up to that ideal for you, no matter how I wish I could." My heart ached, but Ray deserved this truth. "You wish you could?" she asked, looking up with a little bit of hope in her eyes. I frowned. "I wish I could, but I can't." I looked her in the eyes. "Ray, they didn't break my spirit on New Harmony, or I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't have passed my Dan test. But they did break my body and mind in a lot of ways that I haven't told people yet. Some of it I don't even know if it was real or not. It was hard, the first few months, to even hug people or go to the bath. I know you saw this, Ray. You're not stupid." She nodded, her face falling as she heard what I was telling her. "I wish you happiness, Ray. I wish you love, too. But it can't be me." Ray stood. "Yeah, okay," she said tersely. She left without looking at me. I felt relieved, though a little sad. I truly hoped Ray would find someone else someday, someone who could be everything she needed. I put my drink and the remains of the cake in the recycler and took a walk. Part 1. New York Colony. Chapter 2. Jenny. The bar was dark and mostly empty, with only a few patrons. It was early in the evening, even for one of New York Colony's most infamous bars. This was where members of the Kozolezi family hung out after the bombing took out their primary place uptown. Memories of the past started to surface as I entered. "Now's not the time to go through those memories, Jenny," I told myself. The bartender looked up when I walked in, staring at me as I came up to the bar. I sat down at the side away from the other customers. None of them even looked up from their drinks. "What do you want?" asked the bartender as he walked over to the end of the bar where I was. "I heard you were looking for a new bouncer," I replied. He looked me up and down. Well, you look like you could do the job, you being so tall and all." He pointed to the end of the bar. "See that guy down at the end of the bar? He's been here too long today already. If you can get him out of here for me, the job's yours." I looked at the man he had pointed to. He was a big, bald guy who looked like he was made of more muscle than brain. In fact, he looked like In fact, he looked a lot like the typical goons my father used to hire. I got off the stool and went to the other end of the bar. "Excuse me, but the bartender would like you to leave," I said politely. The man stood up and up. He was a head taller than me, which is surprising given how tall I was. "Yeah, what you gonna do about it, Blondie?" he slurred. His hand went toward his side, where he probably had some sort of weapon. I sighed. "I will ask you to leave one more time. If you don't, then we'll have to do it the unpleasant way." The man laughed loudly. "Look here, fellas, this girl says she's gonna hurt me. Ooh, I'm so scared." He waggled his fingers at me and sat back down. Some of the other patrons chuckled. I rolled my eyes. Then in one swift motion I had him off the chair with my knee on his back and his arm twisted behind him. "The bartender would like you out of his bar," I said. I pulled him up, then marched him out the door, giving him a shove as I released his arm. Stupidly, the man tried to come at me again, and I had him on the ground with his face in the dirt before he'd even managed a full swing. "What part of get out did you not understand?" I asked. Then again, if you like being hit by a girl, I could recommend someone. She might be a bit pricey for you, though. The man grumbled something into the sand. I pulled his head up. "Oh, what was that?" I asked. "I'll go. Just let go of me, bitch." "Go home, teddy bear, and sleep it off," I said as I let him up. He turned towards me again, and I raised my eyebrows. He seemed to think better of trying me again and walked away. I waited until he was around the corner before I turned and walked back into the bar. The bartender and the other patrons were staring at me. I walked back to the bar, dusted off my black suit jacket, and sat back down. "A water, please." The man gave me the glass. That was fucking impressive. I didn't think anyone could take down Ollie, let alone that fast. "You better hire her, Bob, or I will," said one of the other patrons. "Wouldn't hurt to have a good bodyguard." "All right, you got yourself a job. What's your name?" "Jenny Brooks." "Okay, Jenny. Come back at 1800 and talk to Brock. He's the head bouncer and he'll give you your spot for the night. You need a weapon?" "No weapons." "Not even a stunner?" "Nope. I don't kill anyone either, nor do I do major injury unless they force me into it. I don't drink, so you don't have to worry about that." He nodded. "Name's Bob. The other bartender is Chrissy, but she won't be here till this evening. The outfit you got on will be fine." I was wearing black pants, boots, a black tank top, and a black suit jacket. He hummed, staring at me. "Actually, maybe lose the suit jacket. Makes you look like a fed. We pay credits at the end of the night, so bring your chit with you." "Right, thanks. See you tonight, then." Bob nodded. "Oh, and if you see Ollie moping out there, tell him I said he could come back in if he pays his tab." He gave a little salute and left. I didn't see Ollie on the way out, so I just went back to my apartment. Well, I thought there's one problem solved. Now to see what I can learn working here. Lulu. "Anna, darling, what are we doing here?" asked Joseph as we drove through the lower rent district of the capital. "There's so many better places to be than here." "Joseph, I don't pay you to tell me where to go, now do I said. "Besides, where's your sense of adventure? This was the area least affected by the bombing, so why not come here? I mean, really, it's the only place in the capital where I know I can get a good drink right now." "But there's unsavory types here. If your father finds out—" "Oh, please. What Daddy doesn't know won't hurt him. Besides, there's not much you can do from off-planet." "What about your credits, then?" "Oh, that. You know Daddy gives me a generous allowance, and I invest some of it. I'm not entirely stupid, you know." Joseph tissed. "Of course you're not stupid, my dear." "Well, yes, just don't tell anyone else, love, or it'll ruin my reputation." I looked out the window of the air limo, scanning the bars on the street. "Come on, Jenny, where the hell are you? My scanner shows you're over here somewhere." A small map was showing her location in my vision. We were probably within a block of her, but it wasn't as exact as the map on my tablet, which I couldn't show Joseph. I sighed. The air limo stopped at a traffic light. At a bar in the corner, a tall blonde woman in black was dragging a man twice her size into the street. Bingo, I thought. Stop the car. I want to check out this bar in the corner. The driver obeyed, turning the limo into the nearest side street. After the limo lowered itself to the pavement, he opened the door for me. Do you want me to wait, ma'am? He asked. Oh, you can just go park somewhere, Roy. We may be here for a while. I'll ping you if I need you. Come on, Joseph. Joseph looked a little green as we stepped out and Roy left. The air was cold, and I walked into the bar as quickly as my high heels would allow. The man that Jenny had thrown out was still unconscious on the ground outside. I smiled, admiring her work. She sure had learned a lot in the last year and a half. Then again, she had earned her first Dan. I hadn't known her all that long, but her takedown of the new harmonist was glorious. I don't think I could have done it any better. The doorman stared at me as he opened the door to a bar that was barely lit and full of mostly masculine-looking people. It hadn't been hard to figure out why Jenny was here. I wondered if she had gotten any real information in the last 6 months. I took in the room. As the doorman closed the door, a lot of the crowd stared back at me. As well they should. I was dressed to be stared at. Black leather pants, a tight black tank top, and a bright red leather jacket with fancy jewelry to match. And, of course, bright red patent leather stiletto pumps, which Joseph hated, but I adored, and not just because I thought they looked sexy. I spotted Jenny at the bar with a drink in her hand. She was the only one not drooling at my appearance, which I appreciated. Kind of made me want her, actually. I put that thought aside for later as I made my way to the bar. I sat close to where Jenny was sitting with her drink. The bartender came over. She was rather cute, with curly brown hair and dark brown eyes. Quite curvy, too. I gave her one of my most dazzling smiles, which made her jump. What would you like? She stammered out. A grenadine fizz, please. I like cherries, I said, and turned up the sexy, which made the poor girl blush a beautiful bright pink. Oh, and a martini for Joseph here. Joseph sat next to me, looking like he was going to start pouting. When the bartender put my drink down, I took out the cherry and did my best come-hither cherry licking. I thought the bartender was going to bolt for the back room. I ate the cherry and looked towards Jenny. You're quite the bouncer, I said. I saw you dispatching that person before I came in, and I knew I just had to come into this bar. Seeing you, I felt that I'd be safe here. Jenny looked bored. I'm glad you think so, ma'am. If you'll excuse me. She stood up and started walking around the room. I followed her with my eyes until she went back to the other side of the bar and I couldn't see her anymore. I sipped my drink for a bit, then gave the bartender another smile. The woman made her way over towards my end of the bar. Interesting that you have a female bouncer, I said. The woman gave a slight frown, then tried to hide it. I flashed her another brilliant smile. Oh, well, she said, brightening. She's new, actually. Been here about 6 months. Pretty amazing, too. She managed to cow one of our most annoying customers and make him pay his tab. And that was just her interview. Doesn't use weapons, either. I'm guessing she's ex-fleet, but she doesn't talk much. Keeps to herself, mostly, and only drinks water. I offered to make her something more interesting that's non-alcoholic, but she always says no. Most of the men don't try her after the first guy that did got his ass handed to him. Women and other folks are a little too scared to try. Then again, she kind of gives off not interested vibes, you know? I nodded. Makes sense. She is a bouncer, after all. True, said the bartender, but she's a puzzle, all right. You want another one of those? She asked. Oh, yes, please. That was quite tasty. What's your name, by the way? Chrissy, and the bouncer is Jenny. You need anything at all, you let me know, okay? Chrissy smiled and went to refresh my drink. Joseph harumphed. Jealous? I asked. What, that you made yet another conquest? Not really. At least it wasn't a guy this time. I shrugged. Sorry, love, I can't help it if I like my men queer. You should leave some men on the colony for us, you know. I suppose. Although, you did have a good time with the guy I brought home a couple of weeks ago. Joseph blushed. Well, yes, but... I turned towards him and gave him a smile. He frowned and said, "You can be kind of a bitch, you know." Takes one to know one, sweetie. He rolled his eyes but smiled back. So, who are you taking home tonight, then? The pretty bouncer or the bartender? Both, if I'm lucky, I said. Joseph shook his head. Why don't you help Roy with the car, Joseph? Roy doesn't need my help, he said, starting to pout again. I just gave him a look, raising my eyebrows slightly. He looked to the bartender, then to me, then to Jenny, who was coming back around to our side of the bar again. Oh, right. Well, I suppose he might at that. He leaned in closer and whispered, I really wish you wouldn't do this, dear. This bar's sketchy as fuck. Oh, don't worry about me, Joseph. With my lovely bartender and bouncer, I think I'll be all right. The man frowned, but downed the last of his drink and left to bring the car around. Completely predictably, a slimy, slick-haired guy came up to me as he vanished through the door. He was obviously plastered, staggering slightly as he tried to mount the bar stool next to me. I sighed inwardly, but didn't move from my seat. Hey, baby, you want some company tonight? He slurred. Not yours, sweet cheeks, I replied. Oh, come on, don't be like that. I can show you a real good time. He slimed his way closer to me. I could see Jenny and Chrissy watching out of the corner of my eye. I'm sure you could, but I'm not interested, I said, and tried to turn my back on him. Come on, little fishy, I thought. The man came closer, putting his hand on my back. He stank of alcohol and could barely stand. Come on, cutie. Let me buy you a drink and we can have some fun. You'd like it, I promise. I tried to get his hand off me by moving to the side, although I didn't do it too hard, as if I was a bit tipsy myself. Then I said, louder this time, No, I don't want to go home with you, as I threw my drink in his face. He stepped back, wiping the grenadine out of his eyes. Bitch! He yelled. Chrissy was moving towards me, but Jenny was faster. She had his arm locked behind him before I even saw her move. Was Boris harassing you, ma'am? She asked. Yes, he was quite rude, I said in my best debutante voice. Jenny nodded, no expression on her face. Well, Boris, you know the rules. Bob doesn't allow sexual harassment in here, and since you just broke the 2-strike rule, you're out, and you're going on the wall of shame. You can't do this. Me, Paolo Kozolezi is my uncle. Is that right? She said. I noticed a tightening of her voice. Well, your Uncle Paolo knows the rules of this place, and is an old friend of Bob's who owns this bar and sets the rules. Who do you think your uncle's going to believe, Boris? Yeah, but I'm Uncle's favorite nephew. Well, if that's so, then feel free to complain to him. Let's go, she said, as she practically carried the man out of the bar. I took a business card out of my purse and handed it to Chrissy. Call me when you get a chance. I gave her the dazzle smile again. Can I borrow your bouncer for a little while? I have a little job that she would be well suited for. Sure, she said, her frown morphing into a smile. I could tell the head bouncer you paid for her time. No need to tell him that, lovely, I said, and handed her a gold credit chit. Just take whatever her salary is out of that and whatever the drinks cost. The rest of it is for you. And really, give me a call later. I sparkled at her again, and she nodded in agreement. I made my way outside to see Jenny watching Boris stalk off down the street. I went up to her, waving and greeting. Thank you for saving me from that jerk, I said. You baited him, she said. You're not all that drunk. Were you doing that just to watch me work? I may have, since I just paid your salary for the rest of the night. Jenny folded her arms. For what? Oh, just a little project. Come with me, my lovely Amazon. I don't do that kind of work. She started to walk back toward the bar. Now, really, I already paid for you. You could at least come with me and see what the job entails. I moved closer to her as the limo came up. I have a friend named Marcia who would like you a lot, although she wouldn't come here because she doesn't drink. Or, well, at least she shouldn't drink. She's had a hard time of it lately. Thankfully, her friend Jack is helping her out on a long trip with their friend Loki. Jenny widened her eyes in recognition. You? Yes, dear. Now come along. We don't want to keep Roy and Joseph waiting. Yeah, I guess not, she said, and we got into the car. Chapter 3. Jenny. How in the world did you know I was here, I asked, and why do you look so different? To answer the second question first, surgery. I am a spy after all, but makeup doesn't usually stand up to fucking, which I do a lot of. Lou had changed out of the outfit she had worn to the bar, and now wore sweatpants and a silk camisole. She flopped on the hotel bed like a teenager. I sat on one of the armchairs, well away from the bed. As to how I knew you were here, well, you really didn't think Musashi would send his best officer in 100 years who just got her first Dan out by herself now, did you? I suppose not, but why you? Oh, I was here already. I've been working this legend in person and remotely for a number of years now. I came here not too long after we left Musashi at Survey Hub. I spent a couple of months on Sun Tzu rearranging my face, and poof, I popped up here again. But you were gone for a year for the Unity thing. Don't the folks wonder where you were? Oh, come on, Jenny. You know what Unity elites are like. The socialites like to go colony hopping. Most people assume that I'm living it up on Daddy's money elsewhere when I'm gone. I mean, they're not wrong exactly, are they? They just don't know that Daddy happens to be an AGI that controls the biggest spy network in the galaxy. On the books, he's Alexandre Yermeyev III, who owns Yeratech, a leading trading company specializing in survey-derived tech on New York Colony and several others. I'm his jet-setting daughter, Anastasia, who sometimes does work for the company. In reality, it's a subsidiary of Intergalactic Survey, MC, which is the company that created Survey in the first place. No one really associates the company with Survey, the sovereign nation, anymore, and the AIs would like to keep it that way, thank you very much. Yeratech? Seriously? The Kozalezis couldn't stand Yermeyev, especially since they couldn't get anyone in the company to spy for them, and the CEO was notoriously hard to get a meeting with. Lulu giggled. Well, obviously. It's not like Sun Tzu could take a meeting, right? But seriously, Sunny does send in an older guy to play CEO from time to time, and that seems to keep the business people happy. Sometimes I take some of those meetings, since they think if they can wine and dine me, then I'll put in a good word with Daddy. She got up off the bed. You hungry? I am. She palmed the door open and yelled, Joseph! No need to yell, Missy. I'm right here, he said, coming into the room. What is it? I'm hungry. Have room service send us up something for the three of us. Oh, and I'm hiring Jenny as my bodyguard. I'll need you to go get her stuff after dinner. Okay, I'll need her lock code. I'd rather not have to pick the lock, Joseph said, looking at me, then walking out of the room. She closed the door and palmed it again, counting to 5 on her fingers. Okay, the privacy shield's back up. Flopping back on the bed, she said. What? It's just that, well, you seem so different from how you were on the Musashi, I said. And I'm kind of annoyed they sent someone after me. It wasn't really sending someone after you. The message I got was more like, please look after her and make sure she doesn't die. If I read between the lines, I think they're worried that you might have a revenge streak or a death wish after all that New Harmony stuff. I stared at her. You don't pull any punches, do you? Why should I? First, you're from Musashi, and Sun Tzu and Musashi folks always had a special relationship. Second, you know I'm an agent, so I don't have to pretend that I'm not. And third, it's my job to notice things, and there was a lot in the message that wasn't said. I'm very good at analyzing on the fly. She paused, looking at me again. It felt decidedly like she was analyzing me on the spot. Then again, she probably was. So, do you? Do I what? Have a death wish or a revenge streak? I was saved by the arrival of our dinner. Lulu opened the door and the waiter pushed in a table with Joseph following behind them. The waiter began to lift the covers off a very large meal, which looked, at least to me, extremely expensive, complete with caviar. It was almost overwhelming. I hadn't eaten this richly in a very long time. It threatened to bring up memories I really didn't want to think about right now. Ooh, earth caviar. Joseph, you really outdid yourself this time, Lulu said. Well, Anna dear, we have a guest. The waiter was finished, and Joseph gave them a tip chit. It was a gold one, summoning a huge smile from the waiter's face. If you need anything, friends, please let me know. My name is Charlie, and I'm downstairs at your disposal until 8 a.m. Yes, thank you, Charlie. We appreciate your service, said Joseph, trying to usher him out at the door. Lulu gave him a smile with just a hint of sensuousness, and the poor waiter practically fell out the door. Joseph followed him into the front room, assuring him that we would indeed let him know if we needed anything more. All this seemed so surreal and not really what I had in mind when I came back here. I just watched while Joseph and Lulu continued their catty banter as they arranged the table to their liking. There was part of me that just wanted to go back to my apartment, maybe even leave the planet, but the greater part of me still wanted to know what was going on with my family. Jenny, hello, dinner's ready, Lulu said. Oh, yeah, okay. I took my place at the table with Lulu and Joseph. So, Joseph, like I said, I've decided to hire Jenny as my bodyguard. Survey bodyguards are all the fashion right now anyway. She gave me a smile that seemed like a challenge. I folded my arms. Hey, I haven't agreed to anything yet. Joseph popped a tomato from his salad into his mouth. Oh, come on, he said, as if he really wanted to stay in that bar. You won't learn anything about the Kozolizzi that way anyway. How do you know that? I asked. Why else would someone like you end up in a dive like that? Only the grunts go there, and while you'll get some information, you won't get anything really important. You can with us, though, Joseph replied. I looked at Lulu. You trust this guy? Well enough to let him know that I'm survey behind closed doors. He came recommended by a resource at Unity Hub. Not quite a gift, as I do have to pay him, but a very good recommendation. Highly skilled in things that you aren't. He sure complains a lot, though, mostly about the men I steal out from under him. Joseph rolled his eyes. And I have my own reasons for going after the cause. Which are? My own, he said, narrowing his eyes at me. Are you sure she's as good as you say? Lulu smiled at him. I'm sure she wouldn't mind giving you a demonstration since you missed the one at the bar. I smiled a wicked smile, taking a bite of my own salad. He looked me up and down, then said, no thanks. No demonstration needed, really. Lulu got a serious look on her face. If Olka asks me about her, though, I'll cut off parts. The man actually squeaked, Yes, ma'am. He choked out, looking at both of us as if we were bombs about to go off. Oh, relax, Joseph. She's not going to go all horror story on you, Lulu said with a laugh. Not today, anyway, I muttered. So, anyway, as I was saying, said Lulu, changing the subject, Musashi hires out bodyguards to high rollers, such as myself, which has become a bit of a status symbol. The cash goes into the MC. Best part is we get people in at the highest echelons of society who deliberately are near invisible, in a strangely visible way. If you want to learn more about what's going on with the Kozolizzi family, that's where you need to be. I frowned. She was making a lot of sense, even though I hated the idea. Running in this society again was a weird and slightly terrifying prospect. There were too many people I knew, even though I didn't think that anyone would really recognize me. The probability wasn't zero. I let out a breath. Okay, fine. I'll do it. I'll be your bodyguard, but no sex, alright? Not my thing. Lulu nodded. You took all 10, didn't you? I raised my eyebrows. How did you know? After what you did and didn't tell me about your previous assignment? I'm not surprised, Jenny. And I saw the video. She looked me in the eyes. I've been in this business a long time, and I'm older than I look. I know what it looks like when someone's been abused. I nodded. From the look on her face, I wondered what she'd seen. Then again, being a field agent for Sun Tzu and Unity, it was probably a lot. Joseph pushed his plate away and said, Well, if you excuse me, ladies, I have an apartment to go to. If you'd give me your lock code. He handed me his tablet, and I typed it in. There's a long duffel in the closet, and my katana is under the bed. It'll fit in the duffel. Do not forget that, please, I said as I handed back the tablet. What about my rent? Joseph waved a hand, and suddenly another gold tip chit appeared. Don't worry, this will make the landlord very happy. Ladies, he said, and left. Lulu stood up and palmed the security shield to her bedroom again. She picked up her glass of wine. You didn't answer my question earlier. I toyed with my fork. I don't think I have a death wish, and I'm not out for revenge, I said quietly. I didn't think so, but I wanted to hear you say it. Besides, you already got your revenge on your father. My head snapped up at that. I clutched the fork and stared at Lulu for a long time. She didn't flinch. Slowly, she put down the wine glass. As I said, Jenny, I've been in the business a long time. The AIs think long-term, my dear, and have had their eye on you since you pulled off your bank stunt. We would have come for you eventually, whether you went with Mark to New Harmony or not. Your experience, all of it, makes you a very valuable asset. If Musashi hadn't claimed you, Sun Tzu would have. Personally, I think you're better off with Musashi. You're more at peace with yourself now than you were a year ago. But yes, we knew who you were well before you went into Unity Fleet. Joseph doesn't know, does he? I asked. No, and I won't tell him either. We've scrubbed a lot of your records for you, in addition to what you scrubbed. Although how that New Harmonist political officer got his hands on your records, we don't know. To be honest, that's part of the reason I'm here. There seems to be an awful lot of information that gets into Paolo Cozzolesi's hands that we know was supposed to have been removed by Sun Tzu operatives. That's why we have a lot of satellite embassy offices in Unity, except for the ones at Unity Hub now, of course. I breathed out. I don't know if I look different enough for my father not to recognize me, or my mother for that matter. I don't even know if they survived the blast, although it sounds like my father came out all right. Do you know anything? Lulu let out a sigh with a sad look on her face. Your father was off planet, but your mother was shopping in the Uptown district near Ground Zero, she said quietly. My mother. I felt tears running down my face, even as my mind seemed to stop. Lulu got up, threw the physical bolt on the door, and turned down the lights. She stood in front of me, holding out her hand. Come on, she said. I took her hand and she led me over to the bed. Sit, she ordered, and I did so. She kneeled down and took off my boots and socks, then pushed me down into the pillows. I rolled onto my side, staring at the wall. I heard her moving around for a moment, then felt her climb into the bed with me. Lulu, I started to say. You may be celibate, but it doesn't mean you can't be held while you cry or sleep. You need to be held more than anything else right now, and that's what I can do for you. She put her arms around me, and as soon as she did, I wept. I wept for my mother, for New Harmony, and all the things that had happened before and since. Lulu didn't say anything except to make soothing noises. At some point, I fell asleep with her singing a lullaby softly in my ear. Chapter 4. Jenny. I woke slowly. The room was quiet and unfamiliar. As my senses became more aware, I could feel someone's arm around me. I opened my eyes with a sudden surge of panic. My fight or flight instincts kicked in, and I rolled out of the bed onto the floor, coming up in a defensive stance, nearly stumbling over my own boots. My brain finally booted up as I remembered what happened the night before. I dropped my arms and stood back up, feeling faintly silly. I looked at the bed. Lulu had her eyes open, watching me. I noticed we were both fully clothed. "It's a good thing I requested a transfer to one of the penthouse suites today, then," she said. I took a few deep breaths to calm myself down and leaned against the wall. We can't do that again," I said. "I know, but you needed it last night. I don't think you've really grieved anything you've been through, have you?" Don't change the subject." My heart had finally stopped racing. Lulu sighed and sat up. "I don't promise not to give you comfort again, but I do promise to ask if you want to be held. But like I said, last night you needed it." I nodded, sitting down in the armchair I'd sat in the night before. The remains of dinner were still in the room, and the light above the door showed that it was still locked. "Do you need to meditate or whatever? I can go see about breakfast and make sure Joseph brought your stuff. I'll also need to order you some extra uniforms." I shook my head. "I don't think I could meditate right now. I'll check for my stuff." I stood and went to the door, palmed the lock, and opened it. My duffel was sitting in front of the door. I picked it up and sighed with relief to feel the weight of the katana within it. I closed the door again and locked it. Kneeling down to open the duffel, I examined the contents. Everything was there as it should be, including some of the little shampoos and soaps from the guest house I was staying in. "What the hell?" I said out loud. Lulu laughed. "You put in the shampoos and soaps, right?" "Yeah. It's a thing. He says it's something about not being wasteful." I shook my head. Lulu got up from the bed and pulled on her red silk robe. She grabbed a brush from the side table and began to work on her hair. She had dyed it a darker color from the last time I saw her. I pulled out my uniform, katana, and belt and put it all on the bed. I could use a shower." "Sure, go ahead and take the bathroom first. I need to catch up on my tablet. Joseph won't be up for a little while yet. I'll order us some breakfast and your extra uniforms while you get yourself sorted." She held up the gi. "Can we tailor it to be a little more form-fitting? It would look really good on you." "No, it's made for fighting in, Lulu, not for looking sexy." "All right, shame though." She looked over at my boots, then back at the gi. "Can you wear the sandals, though? Like in ancient Japanese pictures? The boots really don't match the aesthetic. Besides, your role is semi-ornamental. A lot of the Unity folks don't really think that you Musashi folks are as dangerous as you are." "Fine, I'll wear the sandals. We wore them on Musashi anyway." Lulu looked me over. "Do you always wear your hair in a ponytail?" "Yes, although it does have its disadvantages." "Then why not cut your hair?" "No." "But you wouldn't look that bad with short hair." "No." "Besides, I know how to deal with those disadvantages. Would you like a demonstration?" Lulu grinned. "Not this early in the morning." She looked thoughtful for a moment. Okay. How about the samurai top knot thing? That would look really cool." I sighed. "As long as the tie is black and no fabric or color changes to the uniform either." "Oh, definitely not. The stark colors make you look particularly badass." Lulu scrutinized my face for a moment. "I could do some neat eyeliner tricks, too. It would make you look sinister and feminine." "No, what part of I took all 10 did you not get?" She laughed. "I'm just pulling your leg now. Go on, get in the shower. Meet us in the front room when you're done. Breakfast should be here by the time you're finished." She walked over to me with a serious look on her face. "I know you take your vows seriously, Jenny, and you're not the first transgender person I've been close to. Also, one thing about Survey that I don't think you've really absorbed yet. Among citizens, consent is king. The AIs would exile us if we violated that without real cause. When you grow up in Survey, it's second nature. Even if you can't fully trust me yet, trust that. Or the AIs. I don't know if I can trust all the AIs yet, especially after what you told me last night. She nodded. Go ahead and lock the bathroom door. I'm going to have the waitstaff come in and clear the leftovers from last night, so... I took my clothes with me into the bathroom. Besides the toilet, there was also a large shower and an even bigger bathtub. Well, this isn't how I plan to do things, but it does have some perks, I thought, and locked the door. Lulu. To Daddy, from Anastasia. Hey, Daddy, tell Uncle Mushi that I found his favorite niece. She's doing well and sends her love. She was working a dead-end job that wasn't doing anything for her, so I've hired her for my staff instead. Hope Grandpa's doing well. Has he heard anything from our distant cousins? Love, Anna. To Anastasia, from Daddy. Dearest, your uncle will be quite pleased to hear about his niece. I know, like me, he'll be glad to know that she's in your care and employ. Grandpa is fine, but unfortunately hasn't heard anything from our distant cousins in a number of months. We are worried they might be lost. Uncle C would like to know where you are so he can send a friend to you. Love, Daddy. To Daddy, from Anastasia. Oh, I'd love to meet Uncle C's friends. Will you or he be coming for a visit? I'm staying at the Capitol Four Seasons, although we're changing to the penthouse. I need extra rooms for my guests. I'm sending you all the info in the attachment. Let me know if I need to change my schedule, okay? To Anastasia, from Daddy. Unfortunately, I can't make it, Princess. Work is keeping me here on Geneva. Uncle C is with me, but he said he'd be sending a friend to say hello. They should be there in about a week. Love, Daddy. P.S. Make sure our guest knows that our uncle loves her very much and was only ensuring her safety. I put my palm on the tablet, downloading the messages to the storage in my nanobots, and erased them from the device. Closing my eyes, I reread the messages. Sonny must not be too far to respond so fast, which means the friend isn't too far out. I frowned. So either he's checking up on me or sending information with a friend that he doesn't want to send through the comms. Or both. I opened my eyes, picked the tablet back up, and put in the breakfast order. The door to the other bedroom opened, and Joseph came out. He was accompanied by another handsome man who was fully dressed and gave him a rather lovely kiss before he noticed I was watching. I gave an approving smile as Joseph's friend turned bright red. Oh, hello, he said. Joseph frowned briefly, then put on a satisfied smile. Good morning, and good morning, Joseph, I said. Yes, said Joseph. Anna, this is Max. Max, this is my employer. Max is the owner of the guest house that our friend Jenny was staying at. He was very kind enough to let me in to get her luggage. Not that she had much, Joe, he said. Well, our friend does like to travel light. I'll see you at dinner, Max? The man blushed crimson again and nodded, and I fought the urge to giggle. Max gave Joseph another kiss, waved to me, and left. When the door closed, I did start to giggle. Joseph wrapped his blue silk robe around him, trying to shore up anything left of his dignity. You, Anna dear, are a pervert. Yes, and? Come on, that was some righteous boy kissing. He's really the owner of the guest house? He nodded and sat down at the table with me. Where's your new girlfriend? Bodyguard, not girlfriend. And she's enjoying my full bathroom in private while I've been getting rid of last night's dinner and answering my mail. Believe it or not, I don't fuck everything with a pulse, and I do respect consent. You should know that by now, I said with a slight edge to my voice. He paled a bit, then said, My apologies, dearest. I should know better than to assume. Yes, you should. I gave him one of my dazzling smiles. I ordered breakfast and some extra uniforms and things for Jenny. They'll probably arrive at the same time. Oh, dial it down, Anna, he started as the doorbell rang. Joseph sprinted back to his room, and I answered the door. It was a new waiter this time, bringing in the breakfast cart. He wasn't one of the usual folks who rotated through the shifts. He also didn't have the same kind of body motion that a regular hotel worker had. Ah, fuck, and I'm hungry too, I thought. I gave an audible sigh and let the guy wheel in the cart. I looked him up and down and flashed him a big smile, which had no effect. I hope the breakfast wasn't poisoned too. Hello there, this smells wonderful, I said out loud as I moved closer to him. I was glad I decided to put some shoes on. I stood right next to him as I lifted the lid on one of the plates to see crepes with whipped cream and fruit. I plucked a cherry from the top and did the come hither trick, which seemed to distract him a tiny bit. Ha! Gotcha, I thought, and grabbed his balls and squeezed hard. He squeaked, and I heard something clatter to the ground. I hissed. Oh, naughty boy, I see I may have to punish you. I heard the door open and close behind me. Need some help? Jenny asked. Yes, especially once I get this naughty boy who came in here with a knife to that chair over there. I think your katana might come in handy. Also, would you mind closing the door? I might get a bit grumpy since I haven't had breakfast yet, and I really don't want to disturb the neighbors. No problem, Jenny said. Come with me, boy, I said, digging my long acrylic nails into his balls and then pulling him over to the armchair in the corner. I shoved him down hard, then put my stiletto heel where my hand had been. I heard the door close behind me. Jenny moved to stand behind the assassin, who was starting to recover from the shock of me grabbing his balls. He tried to get up, but Jenny shoved him down, putting her sword to his throat while I shifted the spike of my heel right into one of his testicles. Oh, now, no need for that, naughty boy. You really should just stay still. I mean, you don't want my friend here to accidentally sever your head. The man's eyes looked as if they were going to pop out of his head. Jenny lightly touched the man's neck with her blade, and a little blood trickled out. He tried to move his neck away, but Jenny had such a firm grip on his head he couldn't move without getting closer to the blade. I smiled a sweet smile. So, my little assassin, who sent you? His eyes went wild. Fucking amateurs, I thought. Joseph came out of his room then. Oh, hi, I'll just go back to my room then, he said. Yes, might be a good idea, Joseph. Oh, could you set up lunch for us, though? Make it somewhere really nice that we can celebrate Jenny becoming part of our happy little family. And if they have Genovian chocolate sundaes, all the better. Pushed my heel down again, and the guy in the chair whimpered and squirmed. Right, yes, ma'am. I'll go now, Joseph said, closing the door behind him. Jenny gave me a look that clearly said, Really? You're going to do that now? I ignored it and brought my focus back. Where were we? Oh, yes. You were telling us who hired you. I eased up on my heel a bit. Kozalezi, he managed to croak out. Oh, really? Which one? Hector. I nodded to Jenny, and she took her sword off the man's throat. Wow, what a nice present Hector's given me. A crappy assassin who squeals. Well, here's what's going to happen. My friend in the other room is going to march you downstairs, and you're going to be taken to the spaceport. Where you go after that, I don't care, but know that Yeremaev has people everywhere. Some of them are very loyal to my family, and, well, if they see you on New York Colony again, you'll disappear just like the last assassin Hector sent. Oh, this isn't the first one the Kozalezis sent, asked Jenny. No, I think this is about the fifth. They keep wanting to either kill or kidnap me to bring Daddy on planet. This one was the most cooperative, though. The rest are dead. I gave the man my most dangerous smile and pushed my heel down. Joseph! I yelled. The bedroom door opened and Joseph came running out again, looking a little frazzled. Yes, ma'am. A gold chit for our new friend here, if you please. He needs enough to catch the next shuttle off planet and a little extra for a nice hotel room for a while. Would you mind calling Roy and then giving him an escort to the spaceport? Yes, a moment, he said. I kept smiling at the assassin, who looked like he was going to lose his bowels. I really hope not, since I didn't want to have to pay the cleaning bill. Joseph came back into the room, skirted around me and Jenny, and put the gold shit in his pocket and gave it a pat. There. Anna, dear, you'll need to remove yourself from his person. He motioned. Oh, yes, sorry, I was rather comfortable there. I gave a final short, sharp push and then removed my foot. The man squeaked again. Joseph helped him to stand, taking a firm grip on his arm, and steered him out the door. Jenny went to close the door, but I stopped her before she did. Wait, let me put this out in the hall. I'll order a fresh one. Fucking bastard just had to send his fucking lackey before breakfast. I rolled the cart into the hall. Jenny closed and locked the door when I came back in. I went to the hotel comm panel and pressed in room dining. Room service, this is Trina. Hello, Trina, I said. It looks like your waiter brought us the wrong breakfast. Could you please bring up a fresh one? Oh, and add the crepes with fruit to the order, would you please? Extra whipped cream. Oh, my apologies, ma'am. We'll take care of that right away. Would you like some complimentary champagne and extra coffee? Oh, yes, please. And if you have a protein shake with banana in it, I'd like that too. Large. Yes, ma'am. It'll be about 20 minutes. Thank you, I said, and closed the connection. Crepes and a protein shake on top of all that other stuff? Jenny asked. Cock and ball torture so early in the morning makes me hungry, I said. Jenny sat down at the table. So, who's Hector? I sighed and sat across from her. Ambitious and business-savvy cousin who's become your father's heir, especially since your father just lost one. Hector seems to have an obsession with bringing down Yaratek. Jenny sat up and stared at me. What do you mean my father just lost an heir? I was the youngest child and my older brother was killed. Your parents had another child a couple of years after you left. Another boy. He was with your mom when... I had a little brother? She said in barely a whisper. What was his name? David. Why didn't you tell me this last night? Would it have mattered when I told you? She shook her head. I think I will go meditate for a while, she said. Sure, Jenny. I'll knock on the door when breakfast is here. Jenny nodded, saying nothing more, and went into the other room, closing the door behind her. Oh dear, I said to the empty room. You have been listening to Tales from Flat Space. If you want to support me in my writing, there are many ways to do it. Share this podcast, follow me on my Twitch channel, or buy my books. All you have to do is go to revgenapon.net and click on the relevant links. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.